The change.
The change this morning. I didn't drive to give it out now. He's gonna be doing it, so. The top. No, I'm just making a brief update on, and then some more if they have, if you wanna.
Yeah, that's what it's all.
And then maybe, like, that'll be lots of good.
Good.
The numbers. The second one, I wasn't sure what you wanted to do with that yet. You wanted to have it from the start, or. I'm not kind of just let me just see that.
Yeah.
But this number.
Yeah. No, we haven't gotten nothing on this. Those are what's current.
Okay, so nothing.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just we got to check yesterday.
Jason made a copy. Jason was looking at things.
Well, actually not. You know, we're going to go to a hotel, we're close to the airport, so.
Okay.
Well, that's good enough. They appreciate that. Okay. Finish up the business. I've got a 4 o'clock flight.
There's some issue with insulation.
Brandon, thanks for your comment on general assembly. We've got another weird one too, but I'll just with the top here thing. I know.
Just also law enforcement officer.
This man is calling the police department. Sorry.
I'd say once the athletic director world. I don't always hit everything, but I've been trying to keep up with you. Keep them busy.
2 days and 24 hours.
But you're playing. But you're playing. That's good. I think we've got what do we have for the boys basketball? Or varsity, yeah. Yeah, but at least, like I said, after
Goodies.
Oh, I know, I got some in my pocket.
I know you do. I saw you walk from one side.
Call to order the New Kent County Board of Supervisors, January 27th, 2021, meeting to order. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mr. Evelyn?
Here.
Mr. Tiller?
Here.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Here.
And Mr. Lockwood?
Here.
Good morning, everybody out there. Thank you for coming out this morning. Let's start the agenda. Item 1 is a Pine Fork Park update. Ms. Turner, how you doing?
Well, step back a little bit so I can have this off. Good morning. I hope y'all are having a good new year. Justin and I were talking about birthdays. Today is my daughter's 16th birthday, and he's celebrating birthdays. What are you now, 22, we said? Another celebration I did want to bring to your attention just before we get going. Jason Baldwin, our assistant director, reached his 15 years with the county this month. So I just wanted to, unfortunately, we don't get to have our picnics and everything this year, so I just wanted to congratulate him as well. I wanted to continue our conversation that we've been having with you about Pine Fork Park. I hope you've had the opportunity to, catch up and maybe see it from a distance or maybe even visit if you're with one of our folks. But we did break ground in July of 2019. We're still going. We're still moving forward with that. Just wanted to let you know that Bruce Howard, at this point, our main contractor, they've completed the majority of their contract. There's still a little bit left, but it's items that they cannot do until other parts of the park are done. We don't have any question or doubt that that won't be completed once they're able to move back in and do that. We still have the second part that we had spoken with you the last time we were with you was about our concession stand / building bathroom that we have out there. Feel pretty confident that we've been able to get back on track with that building. Right now, Jason shared that an updated version came through this morning, but we're looking at around the end of May for completion of that building, pending there aren't any significant delays or anything like that. We do have a construction meeting this afternoon, which I believe Justin and Jason are both attending. So if there's any significant impacts or changes there, we can let you know. So that was one thing we had brought to you back in, when did we have the retreat? November? December? That we had brought to your attention, and we did get some help on that, and Mr. Hefty was also there to help us out. The third area, and I'm not sure, Mr. Hathaway and Mr. Strotter, how you want to do this, but I've got them commenting as well on things. We do want to give you an update on some of the stormwater management things that are happening out there. Those were some unexpected issues that we have out there that need to be addressed. And then Mr. Hathaway will look at the budget and what we need, the opportunities that we still have out there to complete this phase of the project to get that done. What I did, I believe Ms. Watkins handed it out. There's a little bar graph that you have. We've been kind of watching the trends of how things are happening in parks and outdoors. People are starting to go outside again. Since the pandemic, it's even doubled. I think Warren and I, we guesstimated it's about a 50 to 60% increase just since the pandemic of people using outdoor areas. But what we did want to check with our community. It was kind of a quick turnaround on the survey, but we had a little over 200 people complete it. And just to kind of show you what amenities are, at this point, important to the community. So if you want to take a look at that, it's not really a surprise. It really hasn't changed that much since we did the initial survey about what people wanted in the park. But the walking paths and bathrooms are still hanging out up top there. So we just want you to be aware that there's a lot of investment. This bathroom concession building that we're doing, it's important. So I want you to feel confident that that was a good decision to put that in the first phase of this project. And then there's some other things down there just for you to note, and then on the back. And that's just for reference there. So with that, I want to, I think we've kind of been over it before. Do I need to wipe this down? Justin, if just to give you a quick recap on some of the stormwater management, design type things we've had out there, kind of where we are with that, and then I'll ask him to answer any questions and turn it over to Mr. Hathaway. So Rodney, Justin, how do you want to? You got a wipe?
Good morning. Just a quick update. As Kim said, the concession stand is moving forward. We had a original budget proposal placeholder, if you will, for the 2 corrective action areas below the stormwater management pond, and then one to the northern side of the property. Those came in. We got the proposals back from Bruce Howard. They are above what we had put in a placeholder. You'll see those reflected in the new numbers. Are those passed out to everybody? Or?
I believe so. You have 2
Okay.
sheets. One was the original projection, and then the one with the actual projection.
Yeah, we had placeholders of 30,000 and 50,000, and the proposals came back right around the mid-90s for both. So you see a slight increase there on those, and that's part of the request Ms. Turner's here seeking from the board. As far as the overall stormwater management plan, the plans have been done, designs final. We're just waiting for the work to commence. And Bruce Howard is going to remobilize once the concession stand gets to a point where they can resume work around that area and have the machinery on site to go ahead and finish that last little bit. That way we're not remobilizing, demobilizing repeatedly. We'll do it in one swoop, hopefully get all this done and have those issues resolved.
Is there any questions so far about the progress of the park, the concession building, the design, that type of thing, while we have Justin and Jason and I here?
Any questions? Ms. Stevens.
Yes, out of the 11 requests that are on here, I see nothing about a swimming pool, and I can't believe that because of all the phone calls, all the comments, everything I see on social media, people requesting a pool in the county. There's no place where especially young kids can go and take swimming lessons, that kind of stuff. I can't believe it's not even on the list.
It's not. We did have another category. We wanted to have the things that we knew that were specifically going to be in this park that were planned. If we do have a swimming pool, it was a future down the road phase, whatever next phase that would be. There have been questions about that, and we've gotten some rough numbers on running pools and different things. And it's more the operating impact than it is just the cost of the pool. But this survey was specific to the amenities that we knew were going to be in Concord Park right now.
Well, wouldn't you charge memberships to offset the cost of the maintenance of the pool? And
You absolutely would.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
You wouldn't want things to be astronomical, but even with our little dog park, there's gonna be a small cost to help offset some of the cost of it. So just to let you know, some of the policies, procedures, I know some of our board members have received questions from the community and different community groups. Those operating procedures will probably be put in place in July 1 of this year. And I spoke with Mr. Hathaway. We'll probably come back in March to one of your work sessions or your board meeting to present those to you and get your thoughts and approval on those types of things.
Thank you.
So, am I reading this correct that you want? I thought I saw something different this morning. You were asking for a $447,000 additional appropriation?
Yeah, I just got this morning as well. So as I'm reviewing it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, back in October, at the October work session, the board appropriated $325,591.11 to address the stormwater issues and environmental issues. As Mr. Starter mentioned, we've gotten quotes back from the contractor, and it appears that we are short. That appropriation was short by the amount of $111,553. So that amount additional is needed just for the stormwater and environmental issues to address that.
And I think we need to address the board because I was in a meeting with the engineer and the surveyor, and our consultant. I mean, obviously, all of these issues are design issues, and it's coming down on the county to, what does that add up to, over $400,000 on mistakes?
Yeah, that's correct.
Approximately.
Yes.
Well, or design issues in
And
question.
nobody's taking responsibility, and it's gonna come down on us, or actually the taxpayers of the county to, Mr. Hefty, I don't believe this, if we take them to court, we're not gonna get anywhere. Would you agree?
Not in a timely manner.
I think that's probably right, although we are working with Mr. Camden, who's the project consultant for this construction project, on putting together a list of all the costs that we think are the responsibility of the designers. There were several design companies involved in this, which were separate companies. And we had a meeting with them, as the chairman indicated. There was a lot of finger pointing about whose responsibility this was, but we're working with him to put together a list to make a claim. At this point, though, I think you need to go forward and approve this because the work has to be done. It's required by DEQ. And Mr. Hathaway and myself and Mr. Camden are going to try to figure out how, if we can, recover anything.
And that was one of the main things that was communicated to us, that it's still going to be a requirement regardless. So do we go ahead and move forward and get this done while we have Mr. Camden and different folks on board, and then seek anything after that point?
Well, and I'd like to add, I mean, we really have no choice but to move forward. Because if we don't, then we run the risk of paying additional fines that could be levied on us by the state DEQ. So it's in our best interest to move forward and correct these items now. On page 2, and I'm reading from page 2 of the spreadsheet, you'll see in yellow the amount that I just referenced, $111,553. Below that, starting with number 3, begins a list of other items that are being requested to complete the park project, which involves the construction of a maintenance building, the store equipment and fertilizer and things of that nature, in the amount of $150,000. Now, this is not really a change order. The original plans did not include a maintenance building. So we do see it's a lot of grass to maintain, a lot of area to maintain, and we do see the need for a maintenance building. Item number 4, improvements to the playground area. If you've driven by there, you've seen that the playground equipment is out there, but there's still some additional items as listed in here that needs to be addressed. There's also additional improvements to the athletic fields to get them in playable condition, which are listed here, $47,235. Improvements to the concession stand area. Some of those deal with drainage also. And then there's the equipment, such as stove, refrigerator, microwave, things of that nature. Again, we do anticipate that the concession stand will produce some income for us, and we've not worked out those arrangements yet. So we should be able to recoup the concession stand cost. And then we've talked about at the last meeting the improvements to the dog park, $15,000, which involves the obstacle course, benches, and tables. The fencing is already installed, as you've seen. We've added Wi-Fi.
Thank you.
Using some CARES Act money, but there's still some more work to do to get to make that accessible to the public. So additional $5,000 is needed there, and Dominion Power, there's more work for them to do as well, for $400. Item 9 lists some additional site improvements. A generator for the well, walking trail, aggregate walking trail, and due to some of the stormwater issues and just getting the site stabilized, there are some areas of the walking trail that's in place that have washed away. So there's some repair that's needed to the walking trail, which currently is a crush and run trail. We've also added a 10% contingency, and that total amount is $461,408.66. Now, that does not include, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, that does not include the additional 111. It does not include it. It does include it. Okay. So the total request is $461,408.66. If you so move to fund that, we would need a motion to appropriate funds from capital fund balance for this project.
Can somebody do the math real quick so we know for sure that the number is included?
And Mr. Hathaway, just a note to the board, I know you just mentioned the walking path, and Mr. Starter, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that amount includes if the board did want to move forward with paving that entire walking path. So just wanted to bring that up.
And I also stopped short, and I think it's that I should mention that we do have some credits here too that would reduce that 461 number. We have a credit for the walking trail. We actually deleted a section of the trail and received a credit $5,476, and we got a credit for the scoreboard of $8,216. So actually the total cost is $447,715.83. You'll also see another option here, and that's if you wanted to move forward with paving the walking trail, that would be an additional $136,000. But, you know, that's also something that we could come back and do at a later time as part of our CIP budget as well.
Thank you. And please let us know if you have any questions between that first one that was given to you and then the second one.
Anybody have any questions?
I mean, I'm just concerned why a 2,500 square foot storage building cost $150,000. I'm sitting here looking at a beautiful metal building, 25 by 100 for $23,000.
You want to address
it doesn't
that,
have to be a
Jason?
Taj Mahal if you just put
No,
in
we've actually cut down the square footage of some of the requirements.
$150,000 for a storage building. That's a lot of money. You can build a house for that.
Yeah, those are the quotes that we received. I'm not sure how many we received, but with the type of, it's not a Taj Mahal, I can tell you, but it does have some of the emergency things that they have to have for the pesticides, including the showers and things like that. And that is that's obviously a project that we would have to put out to bid and get on that. So, Mr. Baldwin, you have any comments on the cost of that? And
I talked with public utilities, and they have a similar size maintenance building there. I believe it was built 5 or 6 years ago. I contacted some of the people that were on the bid list to get some of the numbers. Some of them, roughly what we're looking, having a concrete pad, having some type of heating in there. Like Kim said, emergency washdown area for pesticides, things like that. And we were looking, I believe their cost was approximately around $120 that public utilities did after change orders ended up coming through. So that is a holder there to build something very similar to what public utilities has, that size.
Mr. Chairman, in the concession stand where you have the restrooms and all of that, are showers in there?
No, ma'am.
I thought it was too.
there's an upstairs one.
So if we got a shower on site, why do we need other shower? I
You're gonna want a shower when you look at OSHA regulations. You're gonna want that shower in emergency washdown stations with your chemicals and your equipment. That's just a pretty standard practice.
Where are you keeping your pesticides and all that stuff now?
Currently, the woods locker room
Is locked down
is locked down, and that's where we keep them in.
because we have a very cold shower in there if needed.
It's a heated area there, and if there was an emergency, the showers still have water there, very cold shower in the woods locker room.
And we've had to use it a couple of times.
So how much is it, what is the total cost we're at now for this park?
We're still probably under the projection of the park, or what was, I mean, it was projected at like 7 million. Might have been more than that.
For this
but-
phase?
Mhm.
And where are we now?
We're approximately a little over 4 with Bruce Howard, 5. If this is approved, my math is not great, probably around 6. And when we signed the initial contract with Bruce Howard, I know not everybody was on the board then, but it was kind of understanding that we would probably have to come back with some additional items after the project. And most of them aren't expected here, except for, I would say, the stormwater management design and things like that were not something we were expecting. Mr. Tiller?
Mr. Tiller?
Yeah, I'm with Ms. Page on that $150,000 for the maintenance building, and I'm sitting there looking at the picture that Mr. Steers just showed me of a building. And not to have figured anything for the kitchen.
Yes, that was cut out when we did the appropriation for the concession building. The board asked us to cut that out.
Well, the board asked to cut out because it was my understanding that somebody else was gonna run the concession stand and
Right.
all, I mean, that's the information I was given. I only make decisions based on the information that I'm given. I mean, that's what I do.
And like
so-
Mr. Hathaway mentioned, there will probably be a return on investment with the concession building. The groups that go in and operate it, there won't be one specific group that operates it. That's where we'll bring in March to you. That's where your co-sponsor groups and things come in that give you phone calls. If we want some return on the investment of this building, we're going to have to charge these groups. Now, obviously, what we charge a New Kent Youth Little League group is going to be different than what we charge a private, amateur football group to come in and do it. But it's going to, it will be a while before you see a return on that until we start the operations of the park.
So we decided we were gonna build baseball fields, but nobody figured on the bases, home plate, pitching mounds, or anything else.
That's the batting cages, I think.
And batting cages.
Batting cages.
That just, it just seems like we can't keep saying we wanted that out of the budget, so how do you build a park and not figure any of that in there? That's my biggest question.
Well, it looks like a diamond over there, I'm gonna tell you that.
And I will add, I don't believe the original plans, this is a pitching mound that would go in the batting cages, and I don't believe the batting cages were part of the original plans. That was an addition.
Was the, I don't know, it just seems like there were a lot of things that were overlooked at some point in time. The ADA improvements for accessibility and usage, $6,500.
Overlooked.
It just seems like there's a lot of not small amounts, a lot of large amounts to, let's go add up to $460-some thousand. I don't know, it just seems like a lot was left out that should have been figured in from the beginning. If you build a park, it should have had everything there.
And
to go back and then say 2 years later, oh, by the way, we need this now, because we're building a park, just seems a little absurd to me.
well, and just for the record, we did bring these amounts and we were asked to get it down to a certain amount for the contracts and then bring it back. So that's kind of what we're doing at this point. It's not that they were overlooked or forgotten. They just weren't included in that original amount for the contract that we signed for Bruce Howard in the concession building. Does that make sense?
So I don't know why we
A little
need,
bit, but
Because like we wouldn't have asked Bruce Howard to do pitching mounds because they'd have to mark it up, and when we can just directly purchase those items. Does that? Mr. Baldwin, help me explain that if you want.
The number of equipment, and we purchase it our own, then it's not 15%
Markup on it, so.
However we just want to throw it out there. But a lot of these things were thought of, but like Ms. Carter said, we were tasked to kind of keep it at a budgetary number when we got the bids, and we knew that we were going to have to come back. For some of these amenities. I can tell you, we have bases for the baseball fields. We have pitching mounds for the baseball fields. We have soccer goals. We have football pylons. We have corner flags for the soccer fields. What we didn't have, because we wanted baseball fields to be able to play baseball, but now the batting cages and the bullpens, they need some of those other amenities. And I'm sure y'all would agree that you would rather not pay 15% markup limit, for, and when we can purchase it straight from our vendor that we use and get the best price.
Well, and I'd like to back up a little bit too. When we talk about the initial planning of this site, and I don't have the initial budget with me, but there was a budget for what we approved for Bruce Howard.
Right. And then,
But there was also a substantial amount of money to take care of a lot of these other things that was included in the original budget. Because of the environmental issues we ran into, we've had to bring on a project manager, which was not in the budget.
Thank
And
you.
that
Yes,
ate
that
into
was a-
that pot too. I mean, this project started with a very large contingency. I want to say about $400,000.
it was a very hefty amount, but we
contingency
quickly
money
went through that.
that we had planned to spend this on, but that was eaten into with the environmental issues and the additional consultants we had to bring on. We had some issues with electricity during the project and issues, I believe, with the septic system or the well. That was an additional $100-some thousand right there, having to purchase a well house and to install that well facility. So it was thought about at the beginning, and at the beginning of the budget, there was money set aside for these items. But due to the issues that the project ran into, that money is no longer there.
what has, one more question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I see the red lights.
The meeting that we spoke about earlier, about with the engineering and the design and all that, have all those contractors, have they all been paid in full for their sloppy work?
We are withholding
One of the
payments
design-
from our civil engineer. And I believe we will continue to withhold that payment.
The current is approximately 25,000. And there might be additional, that was worked through, I believe, October. So we have not received their potential invoices for November and December.
I think, I can admit when we make a mistake, and I think where we did on board, where we made a mistake is we tried to piecemeal this project together with different contractors instead of getting one person to do the job. I think we would have been fine if we would just went with one general contractor instead of trying to piecemeal. Thought we'd save some money, and that's kind of got us where we are today.
We definitely have a file of lessons learned on this project.
So now, what are we going to do to figure it out?
Mr. Chairman, wasn't the concession stand an add-on to the original? Or was it always in the plan?
It was I believe it was always in there, but we, like Mr. Hathaway mentioned, the board didn't approve an entire budget. We came to you with each contract. So that was one of the big contracts that we came to you with. And I think it was
at 750? Is that right?
740, 750. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like it was just said, instead of hiring one general for the entire project, we put that out as a separate bid. So that wasn't included, and it was never intended to be included in the site work bid that we put out with Bruce Howard. That followed in a separate bid.
I kind of agree with Mr. Evelyn that, I hope we've learned a lesson from this thing that, sometimes a phased approach is good, but, at the same time, we're building a park. We should plan on building a park that includes all of these things. These things should have been, mulch for a playground and all that stuff. These are things that you're going to need, and it's almost like to come back even before I got here, hearing about the things that are being constantly added. It looks like it wasn't handled well from the beginning, when in fact we just delayed decisions and keep coming back to them. So this should have been looked at as an entire project, so that we know what the real number is and that we don't have to constantly come back and make additions. Now, I agree that the environmental issues were somewhat beyond our control, but I think that, for us to just almost in a blanket statement say, well, that's the way it goes, and you're out $400,000, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either. So that to me is the biggest number that really bothers me. These other things, should have been included in the original proposal and just move forward to build a park. But the environmental fact is just ridiculous, that we're going to hold the bag for somebody else's failure. So
I'll look to these two gentlemen to my left. Like it was mentioned, I think it's something we have to do it anyway, from a DEQ, or we're going to have and Mr. Lockwood, I do completely understand, the accountability factor of that, and hopefully we can continue to work with Mr. Hefty and Mr. Hathaway and that other group to see if there will be any type of recovery from that.
Well, I do agree we need to move forward, because there's no sense in paying fines for something that we're ultimately going to have to do anyway. So I think.
Should we wait to, what does the board think about getting Ms. Turner and Mr. Baldwin come back with some other, before we can look at this maintenance building a little bit closer, and then
I think it would be good for us, I understand you did some background, but,
Yeah, we haven't specifically
building 5 years ago is not the same as the building today, and I do
It's
understand the
actually
need for the
increased.
OSHA requirements and all that stuff, dealing with the pesticides and chemicals. That is a normal factor for a building like that. So, but I think it would be good for us to, if y'all are open to it, maybe just delay this till our next meeting, if that's all right, to make some decisions, and if y'all could confirm some of these numbers, especially the maintenance building, before we move forward. Is that reasonable?
I kind of think we need to move forward on the environmental today, though. I don't think we have much choice on that. Is that what I understand? Am I wrong in assuming that?
We really, and Mr. Starter's really the expert in this area, but I would think that's an area we really want to try to make a decision on today. And then if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, if you could kind of outline the areas you want us to get a specific cost on, in addition to the maintenance building, we can bring that back either to your work session or to your board meeting in February.
Yeah, and look into the metal building, because, I'm looking one here.
Are you sending us a link right now?
I am. Metal building
J.M.
pricing.
Baldwin.
Metal building pricing guide. And it's got, like I said, it's got a beautiful building. It's 2,500 square feet, for $23,440 with insulation is $33.40, which comes to $27,780. And you take that from the $150,000 and you save the taxpayers $123,000.
Well, and we can definitely, if you send that information, we'll take that with the other information that Jason has, and we'll get that to you. So if
Does
you,
that include construction?
probably
No,
not construction
no,
and
it does
labor.
not include delivery.
I mean, there'd be other, but definitely
Right.
if you, we can
But
definitely check on that
if
option.
you cut it $75,000, if you got the building for $75,000, that'd be a hell of a deal.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, we can
It
definitely
sounds a
take,
lot better than
it's,
$150,000.
I think when we originally had it at about 200, and we cut it down. So we'll take a look at that if you want to share that information with
Like I said, it's
Mr.
just,
Baldwin.
it's a maintenance shed. It's not a house. Just, just look at it, okay?
We will.
Okay, thank you.
I can't. I'm good.
Can I ask also on the generator rental for the well? What kind of generator is that? I mean,
We didn't that was when we didn't have power.
There was 1 week where we did not have power and the athletic fields needed irrigation when they were sprayed. So that was a 3-phase generator for only
For a week.
And we were lucky that we got immediate power in there and everything got set up.
So that's something that's already been done. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can ask, looking at that, are there additional items that the board wants to consider approving today and additional numbers of items that you want us to bring? I can tell you the cost on 3 we can definitely look into. Most of them are, they're pretty real cost. I mean, they're pretty spot on.
Have you received quotes on any of the concession equipment?
We have received, it was around 12,000 on the low to medium end. The high end was, in the neighborhood of 30,000. But I think we put in 12,000 on that, and there might, and I'll have to touch base with our finance department to see what state contracts we have right now, but I think that was one that we kind of looked up on the state contract already.
Okay.
Going along with in the concession stand, so approximately $16,000 worth of drainage issues there as well. Why would not be already raised to grade another $8,400 and rear drainage improvement another $7,000?
Do you remember that one?
I mean, that's another.
I was say we're gonna look. Do you remember, Justin?
One of the items we discussed in the meeting, one was the contractor needs to raise the slab elevation, doing so through
With the
all
site,
range
right.
patterns.
What's that?
And I believe the second one was for a French drain pipe behind the building, to the slope coming after they raise the grade. But those are included in the items, Mr. Hefty and Mr. Camden are looking at.
Thank you.
So, just so I'm clear, we had multiple contractors, and each one of them just had their own set of plans. Nobody knew what the other contractor was doing. Is that what I'm thinking?
No.
I mean, that's the way it looks.
Well, go ahead.
There's one site contractor that did the engineering and design, and that work was used by the site contractor for this island. And that work was also used by the construction company to build the concession stand. And there were some deficiencies in that environmental plan, that engineering and design, which has led to various issues, such as concession stand, such as the BMP area, some other drainage issues.
And we do have
The final engineer design plan that we were given, stamped, did not match what actually was out on the ground. I mean, that's basically what happened, and we're paying a price for it.
Okay. I'm good now. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
if there's no more discussion, I have a motion. I move to proceed with the requested amount for the stormwater management redesign and DEQ corrective actions. I guess that's what you're asking for. In amount of what, Mr. Hathaway, 447,000?
No, just.
No, that's,
Okay.
Environmental portion.
111,000?
The motion would be to appropriate, yes, the $111,553 from capital fund.
Okay, here we go. Mr. Chairman, I move to appropriate $111,553 for the stormwater management redesign and corrective actions and appropriated from our New Kent capital funds.
All right, Ms. Page, let me ask something on that motion. Should we add, because we've already have to do it, this concession drain improvement, the 6,600, and the concession raising the grade at 8,400, because that's gonna have to be done. That's not including any equipment as well.
Is that the same company that's gonna do that? If so, we might as well go ahead and do it and be done with it.
I mean, that's not concession equipment, that's just the, get to,
Okay, to amend my motion, I would like to add the drainage, for the concession stand area, this area drainage improvement, as well as raising the grade to match the slab and drainage pattern.
okay, Ms. Page has a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Ms. Watkins, poll the members, please.
Mr. Tiller? Aye. Ms. Page? Aye. Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood? Aye. And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Thank y'all.
thank you.
All right, hopefully this one won't be as bad. Next item on the agenda is consideration of proposed agreement with VDOT to enforce illegal advertisements within the VDOT right of way. Mr. Hathaway, you taking this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You have before you Resolution R-05-21. This is a resolution approving an agreement between New Kent County and VDOT for enforcement of illegal signage and advertisements within the VDOT right-of-way. Per state code, section 33.2, 1224, VDOT has the authority to allow localities to enter into agreement with VDOT to enforce illegal signage. That code also states that localities can issue fines and collect fines as well. And I would just like to add one other thing that the resolution that you have before you does is it designates the zoning administrator to be responsible for the removal of signage in the VDOT right-of-way.
I know we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 months now. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is a good start for us to clean up the roadways in New Kent, and I think item number 3 is going to add to that. So hopefully this is kind of get the ball rolling. I think that when we kind of come out with a plan of how we're going to attack this, since we are talking about businesses that have put signs along the road to advertise their businesses, that we should give some sort of 30-day notice to the community that you've got that much time to get your signs placed in a location that doesn't impede on VDOT's right-of-way, or remove them yourself, otherwise they're going in a dumpster somewhere. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
I received an email, geez, of course I can't find it now, that the state has already, I know in the Eltham area, they have already sent out letters to several businesses saying that their signs are not standard and or their signs are, have not been permitted to be placed where they are. So, and they sent a state code which stated that they needed to go through and remove the signage, or they needed to pay a permit fee to the state. So, and those were large advertising signs. So I know that they do have a concern about that, that portion of it. I'm in agreement with Mr. Lockwood on this. If we can clean up our right-of-ways, I'm all about it.
My question is it only the zoning administrator allowed to go out and pick up the signs, or well, I mean, I have been known to pull them up myself, and I don't mind doing it, but I also don't want to get in trouble for me doing it. And plus, I think the zoning administrator has a lot to do already, so any help he could get from a board member, I think he would appreciate it.
Well, you know, the state code, I believe, says the Board of Supervisors or its designee. Brendan, should we amend the resolution? Because right now the resolution states that it specifically designates the zoning administrator to be the county's responsible party for enforcement under this agreement. So.
Yeah, I would say the county or its designee, and the board can then designate who it wants to enforce. So I'd amend that to, if you want it to go beyond the zoning administrator, to just include the resolution to authorize the county or its designee. The only other thing I'd point out is that we are approving this before VDOT has approved it, so this won't go into effect until we get VDOT's approval. I just want everyone to know that this isn't going to be effective immediately upon adoption, because we're still going to need VDOT to actually approve it and send us a signed memorandum, and so we can't start enforcing until we get that. Yep. So Ron, don't grab any signs just yet.
And as a footnote, I said I would volunteer to pull up the illegal signs in my district only.
Oh, that's what you said?
Yes, ma'am. Unless you didn't catch that, Ms. Page.
Well, I mean, some of your district and my district, you can't just scoot across the road and get a couple of signs.
Yeah. With your permission, I will.
Yes, ma'am.
So we might be able to push our delegate to try to get a quicker turnaround once we approve it, because I think he might have helped a little bit on this. All right.
Go ahead, Mr. Lockwood.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. There's no other discussion. Ms. Watkins, poll the members, please.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Next item, Mr. Hathaway again, County Litter Collection Program discussion.
All right, thank you. At our last meeting, I was asked to look at some options for the removal of litter along our roadways in the county. I've received various complaints. You've received various complaints as well, and we see it every day riding on our roads, the condition of litter alongside of our roads. So, what you have before you and what I've passed out are two options for the removal of litter alongside our roadways. One is a county staff option, and the other is a county contract option. The county staff option would involve the hiring of two positions responsible for picking up litter along the county roadways. I tried to put some numbers and costs associated with each option. For the two employees, the loaded salaries total would be $82,992. That's with a minimum wage of $15 per hour, which will soon be law, according to recent actions by our assembly, our General Assembly. That number also includes all of our benefits, our insurances, and other benefits that the county offers. So the total cost, which is a loaded cost of $82,992. Operating supplies and equipment, I've put $5,000. That's for the supply of bags, safety gear, tongs. I believe that number, and I spoke with Mr. Steers of VDOT, hopefully can assist us with some of those costs as far as the tongs and bags. Mm-hmm.
Could I interject? Yes, I spoke with, who's our resident manager?
All good, Jeff?
Marshall.
Okay.
I spoke with him yesterday, and he said that he would be willing to donate all the trash bags we need. He would be willing to donate the supplies that we need, safety cones, safety vest, collection tools. He wasn't real keen on supplying insect spray.
Mm-hmm.
But and when it comes to as far as their clothing and stuff, the uniforms, I mean, if they're going to be working through the general services, they get uniforms, right?
Yeah, but we would just have to build that in as
in
additional
extra,
costs, and that
Right.
would be rental as well.
And so he's willing to donate all that stuff to the county at no charge. So that I think you had $4,000 last year for that, and you got $5,000 for it this year. But
Yes.
anyway, you can take out the cost of the safety cone, safety vest. I don't know if they need a water cooler. They can bring one from home.
Well, we wouldn't pay for the water cooler, but
Right.
anything dealing with safety,
Right.
yeah.
But I think that's a nice sizable chunk of saving there, $4,000 to $5,000 a year
Yes.
on that.
Yes. And then we've just built into other what I feel necessities, cell phones, again, uniforms, vehicle maintenance. They would need a vehicle, which would need oil change and just regular maintenance. That's pretty much a standard number we use across the board for all of our departments. One-time startup costs, and again, this is worst case scenario actually, and that's if we had to purchase two vehicles. I think we may have some spare vehicles already accessible to us that we can use, some used vehicles. So we wouldn't purchase it if we already have it, and I do think we have some.
Yes, sir. I spoke with Jerry Assessor with the Providence Forge Volunteer Fire and Rescue, and they have a pickup truck that's just sitting idle, has not been cranked in several months, and he said he was willing to donate that pickup truck to the county.
Oh, okay.
Ronnie, you said 2 trucks? Because I would think that they would work in a kind of a team fashion to one on each side of the road would make more sense than one person out there by themselves picking up. I mean, just from a matter of visibility and all that, you know. Yeah.
And
I would think, you know, when we've done trash pickups, it's always been in either, you know, groups or pairs to,
Right.
just for safety reasons. And,
Yeah.
and it makes it a little more efficient to hit both sides of the road as you're going down, so.
Yeah. And again, this is worst case, but I believe we have another spare vehicle that we've recently
yeah,
acquired.
I spoke with Chief Opet when we took possession of the Promise Forge Rescue Squad. There was a F-250 pickup truck diesel. Plus, I think if not that vehicle, I think he has another vehicle that he'd be willing to.
I have an SUV that you have right now.
Okay.
I know it's not big, but you can get trash bags in the back of it.
Yeah. And I have another SUV. Actually, the Economic Development Department has one too, so we can find a vehicle.
That's probably not gonna be too efficient.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
it's not,
not to mention it doesn't smell
No,
too good in
yeah.
the summer with, when you're in there with all the trash you just picked up.
and also I've put signage in here too, but I think that's another thing that VDOT will help us on as far as.
Yeah, they
cones
said
and
they would supply the
signage.
signage for litter pickup ahead, slow down, whatever, that kind of stuff.
So, you know, this is worst case scenario if we were to stand up this service from scratch, but it appears that we have some assistance and we have some available resources. You know, the main thing is the 2 employees, that $82,992. And I think there's some advantages to having staff, to hiring staff to address this. Definitely, we could address more issues as they arise. As you get calls, it's easier for us to dispatch people out to those locations. I think we can address that quicker and be more responsive.
Mr. Hathaway, I really think the state of the county right now on the trash, I mean, that's one of the biggest complaints I get. 2 people are not gonna clean up what we have right now. I mean, I think that would maybe be a good thing to add on in compliance, but I think we need to have a big sweep with a lot of people, and then hopefully, if we want to bring on these 2 people, just my opinion, and kind of keep it
Yeah, 'cause
maintained.
2 people are never going to get ahead of it. I mean, it's, you know, you can probably do 3, maybe 4 miles a day with a crew of 2. That's kind of pushing it, you know.
And then you still have
Because you've got to set up signs. It's not just a matter of out there picking up trash. You've got to get set up with signs and all that stuff before you start to pick everything up and pick up all the bags as you go and all that. So we did a trash pickup in our area. It was a little over a half a day. We got 5 miles done, but we had 12 people doing it.
Right.
So, you know, granted, you're a little different with families, with kids and stuff like that, but I agree. I like the idea of them being full-time staff just for, I think we can get more done than just the mileage that we've stated below with the contractor, and having that availability when there is some issue in a particular location to be able to just get it resolved quickly.
Yeah. There's, on that list, it's 145 miles. And even if they could do 3 miles a day, that's, I mean, in a month's time, they wouldn't.
And in a month's time, unfortunately,
It's gonna
it's
be
back
back
to
there
where it
again,
was.
yeah.
So, you know, I think it's one of those things where, you know, but there's some truth to it. It's like graffiti. You know, if somebody tags a wall and nobody does anything about it, the next guy doesn't have a problem tagging the wall, and the next thing you know, the wall's covered. But if you clean it up and paint over what was done, you kind of discourage it. And I think the same thing goes for trash. When people see that the road's been cleaned up, they're less inclined to litter. When it's trash for miles, and they don't care. But I'd like to see us do another community-driven trash pickup, especially for this, you know, the side roads and all that stuff. If we can organize that, we did it a couple of years ago and made a big difference. some of the main roads that we've got on here, it's kind of dangerous having people out there, you know, but it would be nice for, you know, if we're going to hire these two guys or maybe even hire some contractors to do a sweep, that we include the community and see if we can get people to do their neighborhoods and their side roads and promote it that way. Let's clean up New Kent, not just my little stretch. Just a thought.
Am I hearing that you would
So I
prefer
have,
to hire more than two?
I'd
Excuse
prefer
me.
to hire two people. And
my
then-
question is, what is the advantage of having county staff versus a county contract? I mean, I know that it can go out if there's a need for certain areas, but then it becomes, we can contract out. We know they're going to do 3 pickups. I hear what VDOT will do, but I know the issues we had trying to get VDOT to loan us equipment for a weekend or one day versus if we have full-time staff, we're going to have the supplies, because I seriously doubt that they're going to give us all of the equipment that we need. We did in Clean County pickup bags. They were like, I don't know, bags for 10, and that didn't include signage. It just included the grabbers and the bags and all of that, like $100 and $200 and some dollars a bag. But with the county contracting it out, wouldn't they be obligated to, isn't it an obligation that it has to be done during this time versus 2 people? And even if we did 3 people going all over the county, then how do you complete each roadway? And if it is a contract for the county, can the roads be switched? I mean, do you do the same roads all the time?
Well, I would recommend, if we went the contract right, that we built in an on-call services clause too. You know, I don't think it's affordable for us to include every single road in a contract. So I kind of prioritize just based on traffic. And that's it. I just based it on traffic, the list here. I mean, honestly, I know that there's some roads in the county that are in worse shape as far as trash, but they might not have the amount of traffic that others do.
Don't you think, like 60, I mean, VDOT should, on that main road, they should have inmates in there a couple times a year taking care of 60. I mean, but
not
obviously
only
they don't.
But not only that, when they get grass cutting season, they should be picking up trash anyway.
Well, and that's why I picked the schedule that I picked, with being March, August, and November. With March being right after the winter time, VDOT usually doesn't, they're probably just starting their grass cutting. Usually that's not till about April or May. And that's when we get the most complaints, really, after winter time and in the springtime when people are out. And then that November cut, usually, you know, VDOT stops cutting. We get that last cut, maybe September. So I kind of spread this out to incorporate the times that VDOT aren't out cutting grass. And I would like to say, too, this is an estimate. The important part of this contract here is the rate, the approximate rate. And yes, we can switch out roads if needed, and we can build in on-call services. But from the contractors that do this work that I've spoke to, the rate that I've been given is $150 per mile, and for a road with the median, $180 per mile. And definitely, this list of roads is flexible. We can add in an on-call services clause, so we can call contractors as needed. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what the cost would be for the service.
What would we do with these employees, because on rainy snow days and stuff like that? I mean, what would their duties be?
Well,
They're part-time though, aren't they?
it's my vision that these employees would be members of the general services.
Part-time or
department.
full-time?
I've put in full-time. I think it's going to be difficult. We may find some people willing to work part-time to do this. I think it's going to be a little more difficult. The numbers that I've put in here are for full-time.
So what would they be doing?
Well,
Nasty
what
call?
I have in mind is they'd be working for general services. If it's raining, definitely there's things that they can do on campus, projects we can assign them to assist our general services department. And when they're not picking up litter, I believe we can have these individuals clearing easements. We own a lot of public utility easements in the county, and it's difficult staying on top of maintaining those easements and keeping them clear. We can have them doing that. We can also have them assisting with our recreation fields and other grass cutting around the county. Right now, we have one person in general services that does all the grass cutting for the county. Now, for Parks and Rec fields, we do have 2 part-time individuals, but all of our other campuses, it's one person.
So,
What if we-
this include benefits?
Yes.
If they're gonna be full-time employees, then you gotta pay benefits, right?
Is this,
You got to pay
includes-
benefits. Yes.
so the 82 includes the benefits?
Yes.
Yes, that number includes benefits.
So what if we,
I don't think we can afford 3 people.
what if we go ahead and recognize that it's a mess out there and we need to do something about it?
Mhm.
And why don't we go ahead and do a one-time right now, schedule it for, February or March or whatever, and do the $23,000 and see how well it goes, see how well they do.
I would support that, and I would support actually doing the whole 3 times, go ahead and sign up a whole year and do on-call. Because I think with 2 people, I think once we get caught up, I think that would help. Now, I'm not against that, but all 5 of us got issues in each one of our districts, and for 2 people, we're all gonna be calling Mr. Hathaway or some general services, and we're gonna be pulling them
Well, there's
every which
5
way.
days of the week.
And I would like to add a couple more roads to this too. I mean, I'm sure we all would like to add a road or 2 in each one of our districts.
Hey, whatever y'all add is still in my district, so I don't care.
But I agree. I think there's an issue, and I think that would make a statement if we go ahead and
Plus,
get RFPs on the contractors coming, because, I mean, they got the material, we don't have to pay the insurance, and
Why don't we do,
so,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, sir.
Why don't we just go ahead and do the contract for a year and see how it goes? See if it makes the impact we think it should or could. And if we feel like there's another need down the road, we can always address this later and see if it's in our best interest to hire a couple of guys or continue with the contract. At least then we don't have any of the upfront costs associated with starting with 2 employees. And, we're going to be spending we're going to be spending less money with the contractor. And it would be nice to have them get out there sooner rather than later and make a significant impact initially.
Mr. Chairman, and as we talk trash, we do have our New Kent Clean Committee, have spoken with Mr. Lockwood, who is our liaison, and Josh. And their committee, is my understanding, are going to start a Keep New Kent Beautiful campaign, whatever their catchword is going to be. At the end of the day, I can tell you that with all the videos that I've seen throughout our regional localities, it's trash everywhere. So we aren't the trashiest locality, so we can put that out there. But I think with our Clean County Committee, putting out through media and just calling attention to it and awareness of it, I think it has to be that, and then a consciousness that every citizen, every resident has a responsibility to keep our roadways clean. And I said it because we have very few visitors that would be on a Henpeck Road or Old Telegraph Road. So it's got to be residents that live there. So I think it's a matter of education and awareness, and I think that that is the committee that can promote that as well. So I think that topped with a contract, and I'm in agreement with you, Chairman Evelyn, and Supervisor Lockwood to try it for a year. I also think that we should contact VDOT with their grass cutting season and see if it's in their contract to clean the roadways before they cut the grass.
It is.
Because that's not being done. And you can come down 249 at any given time with cans and everything else out in the middle of the roadway. So I think that we could do that as well. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
And Sheriff, I know you used to be able to get a few inmates, but that looks like that's harder and harder to come by now.
Harder and harder to do. I believe honestly it's going to become a thing of the past as far as consistency.
Does the state have the same problem, you think, or are they able?
State has a little bit different hammer to force that than the local jails. Also tell Mr. Hathaway, I believe in our prisoner confinement budget, we have about $6,500 in there. We could probably reduce that significantly by the reduced jail costs if you have this project going.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just note anecdotally that in the short term with the pandemic, most jails are restricting inmates leaving the facility because they don't want them to come back. So it's probably in the short term not going to be that readily available.
That's a good point. Mr. Steers?
My only concern with having it contracted out is, let's say that the crew comes through in March and cleans up New Kent Highway. And then 3 weeks later, a truck comes through there and trash blows out all up and down 249 on their way to the dump. It's going to sit there until August before they come back and pick the trash up.
Well, hopefully we'd get VDOT's supposed to clean up doing grass cutting. It's in their contract.
I mean,
Depending on how bad it is, if we've got an on-call clause in the contract, we could technically pay somebody to go out there and clean it up.
no.
Without having to
I
wait.
think with contracting out, we don't have as much control over it as if the crew worked for the county. And they talk about being on call. We could call Rodney and ask him to call Mr. Stewart and tell him we got a major trash pickup on aisle 5. And they would go over there and pick it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or something like that. I mean, if you want to try this for a year, $69,000. I think it'd be better to go with the employees picking it up. I just feel like we have more control over it. Just my opinion.
I completely understand where you're coming from, but I just think that you might get the first year, there's so much trash out there, I just think we get a bit bigger bang for our buck when you ever get ahead of this stuff. And plus being on call, I think that's important to add in there. It even costs $100-some thousand. And then if we get ahead of it, in 6 months we'll look at it. If we need to add 2 employees, we can look at it then. I just think 2 people trying to pick up trash for the whole county, I just think they're going to have a hard time making a big difference because we're all going to have constituents.
Well,
And one thing, if it's contracted, they have to do the 100 whatever mileage within that pickup time. So, like between now and March, if we signed it, they would have to make sure that that amount of miles is done versus staff. Staff is not going to pick up in a month 145 miles of roadway. And then we don't even know if the contract will work, but at least we have the opportunity to see if it'll work before we hire people and say, hey, this makes no difference. And so what do? Terminate them or just put them somewhere else in the county? I mean,
I would ask that if we go the contract route, that you review the list of roads that I've added here. And let me know, and the sooner the better, so I can include that in the request for proposals, because I believe the scheduled route rate is probably going to be cheaper than the on-call rate. So if there's other roads that you want to include, please let me know, and I'll include that in the RFP.
All right,
Let me ask you, Mr. Hathaway, would it have to be an annual contract, or could you just contract with them to pick up for 1 month and let's see, and then possibly look at hiring a county employee after we got the bulk of it out?
You know, per Virginia procurement law, because of the amount, I mean, with just the roads that I've listed, you know, one round of pickup is 23,000. It's below the threshold that I have to put that out for procurement, but I will have to get, I believe, 4 written price quotes. We can go that route if you just want to do one. I can just get price quotes and.
I mean, it's what the board decides. That was just my suggestion.
Yeah. But if we do the Schedule 3 at the amount I've projected of $69,000, that would require us to put out a bid.
I'd like to do a year.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no more discussion, Mr. Chairman, I move that we contract out trash pickup through the month, at the annual cost of $69.
no, I wouldn't put a cost in it because we might want to add roads to it, each one.
Okay, so I move that we contract out for county litter pickup for 1 year.
All right, is there any discussion? And how long would it take? So you have to put an RFP out for this, and we probably need to get you any additional roads by the end of the week, and then you could get this out.
That would be correct. It won't take long to draft an RFP. I mean, that's something I could have ready by the end of the week. So if I could get that information from you, that would be great. Also, I just want to add too that any contract we enter into will have a termination clause if this is not working. So we're not stuck for a year if we find early on that it's not working.
All right, is there any discussion on the motions? Ms. Watkins, poll the members, please.
Mr. Steers? Aye. Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller? Aye. Ms. Page?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye.
While we're on the subject of trash, real quick.
Yes, sir, Ms. Lockwood.
Mr. Hathaway passed this out earlier. Or
Mrs. Steers.
Ms. Steers? Okay, if you'd like to address that, then I don't want to.
Well, I mean, it's kind of an afterthought, but you can see that this was posted on social media and under New Kent Neighbors, and you can see all the complaints, and you know, and it's countywide, and the only thing that because I'm very careful about posting anything on Facebook, because it's kind of like being in an ocean full of sharks. As soon as you do it, you just fall off, you're eaten up, you know. But I did just post on there that this is on the 1/27/21 agenda for the BOS meeting to discuss the options to help remedy the situation. Stay tuned. So, but you can see all the complaints, and it is countywide, and that was probably 3 or 4 days ago, and I'm sure there's more been added to it since then.
Thank you, Mr. Steers. And I'd also like to just point out on that post that was in New Kent Neighbors that what initiated that was actually a very positive thing. We had, and I'm going to butcher some of these names, I apologize, but Veronica Pavon is the one who posted it and named Sylvana Damon, Scott Sullivan, and John Noble as folks that went out and took it upon themselves to pick up trash on Airport Road. And that's what started it, was, you know, people being recognized for doing a wonderful thing for our beautiful community. And there were a lot of complaints, but the overwhelming response from the community was thank you. And I would just like to express my appreciation for the folks that got out there and did that. They're being recognized, but there's a lot of other people in the community that take it upon themselves on a regular basis to go out and pick up trash on the road, not even always the road they live on. So I had an encounter with a couple ladies in our area in Barhamsville that were doing the same. And one lives on one side of the district and one lives on the other, and they switch sides and pick up trash in each other's neighborhood. So I didn't get their names, but I do just want to express my appreciation to all the people that are dedicated to helping keep New Kent clean. Thank you.
All right. Next item is Preston Hollow presentation.
While Mr. Hathaway is passing out the presentation, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of staff, thank you for allowing us to come in and speak to you one more time. Some of what you're going to hear is just a repeat of some of the stuff that we've talked about in the past, but we thought it would be helpful to put everything together in one section. But at the same time, I think we do have a few new things to discuss. The one thing that I think I've met all of you except for Mr. Longwood before, but none of you have met our Chief Executive Officer. So I'd like to start off by making an introduction to Jim Thompson and having Jim make a few words to you, and then I'm going to go through the presentation that was just handed out. So with that, Jim.
Ramiro, thank you, and thank you for having us here today. It's I know you've entertained us several times in the past on this project, and we're very appreciative. If I could just, by way of introduction, Preston Hollow Capital is a relatively young company. It was formed by myself and a colleague in 2014 with the idea that we would provide financing for projects that reflect state and local government priorities. What you find in this milieu are things like infrastructure projects, broadband, parks, economic development projects, and financing of critical care, healthcare projects. We started out pretty small, but over the few years that we've been in business, we've been fortunate enough to attract a number of new shareholders. As I said, originally it was just myself and a colleague. We've picked up about 85 shareholders over the years, and that has allowed us to grow to our size today, which is about $2 billion. One of our, I'm pandering here a little bit, but one of our favorite shareholders is the Virginia Retirement System, who came in 2016 and 2017, and we're very proud to have them among our shareholder group. Just to give you a kind of a sense of what we've done, one of our largest projects to date has been the economic development or redevelopment of a military base down in San Antonio in partnership with the city of San Antonio. We've invested about $200 million in infrastructure, a facility to attract an employer that turned out to be Amazon, a hotel that the city wanted there, and Ramiro actually is in the process of commencing development of 450 units of workforce housing now to support what has become over 3,000 jobs on that 1,300-acre base. So this is a mission that is very near and dear to our hearts. We got involved here at Farms in New Kent back in 17 and 18 with the purchase of the defaulted bonds that were originally issued in 2006, and as the project has unfolded, it has become a very high priority project for us because we feel like we're on the cusp of being able to really help the community achieve some of its goals here in terms of growth of AV and bringing new people in. So thank you very much for having us here today. And I'll give it back to Ramiro and let him take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll start off by, this is just a presentation. We're not asking for any action of the board today, but we did, again, just want to come back and go through why we've been talking about this for quite some time with you, because it's clearly important to us. So on page 2 of the presentation, labeled "Why do we need these new assessment bonds?" We wanted to just again open up the covers or the curtains and give you all of the transparency and clarity that you deserve. So obviously this is a very important project for the county. It's an important project for us. It's a very large scale development, and the property under the PUD that we control is still another 1,800 homes and 1 million square feet of commercial. And if you translate that, and I'll show you what those numbers are here, in terms of the economic value for the county, it's hugely significant. But in order to get there, it's going to take $100 million, to install the level of infrastructure that's necessary to support that development. And that's just being on the portion of the PUD that we control. And these bonds are important to us because it will help us accelerate development. Said in the alternative, without the bonds, it needs to be a bit of a pay-as-you-go program. As money comes in, in the form of land sales, then it can be used to pay for infrastructure. It doesn't allow for the accelerated development that we think, as Jim mentioned, this project is on the cusp of doing. The other thing that the bonds would allow us to do are install some quality amenities. We'll show you what the vision is of those amenities in Land Bay 5. It's in part of the summary package here. But we intend to continue that in Land Bay 4 to the extent we can, as well as Land Bay 3 and the balance of the Farms of New Kent community. The other thing that it would allow us to do, and frankly, this is a perfect segue from the first portion of your meeting agenda today, is that this is economically valuable to us, clearly, or else we wouldn't be coming to you for the multiple times that we've done. And we are prepared to make a contribution, towards the Pine Fork Park. Not measured in the thousands, not measured in the hundreds of thousands, but measured in the millions. Towards contribution to that park. We think it has some benefit for the community at large, but it clearly I think would have some benefit for those residents that call Farms of New Kent community home. So that's something we had made a proposal to the county to finance the entirety of Pine Fork Park. I understand the reasons why that's not desired, but we're here to tell you that we are willing to have a conversation about Pine Fork Park in terms of a contribution for a portion of the project. I heard swimming pool was a request of the community. Ms. Page, I think I've heard that from you as well early on. And we are currently, Mark, building $1 million swimming pool in Land Bay 5, approximately. So it's an area that we know quite well. We think there's going to be a great amenity, at least for those that we'll call the Land Bay 5 home, in Farms of New Kent. But we'd like to see that type of amenity made available for the entirety of the community. So in terms of Mr. Evelyn, one thing that's new is relative to other conversations that we've had is our express willingness to, in fact, make that contribution, to Pine Fork Park, as it relates to the ability to issue these new bonds. Next page. We've had this in bits and pieces, but again, I wanted to go through and just make it very clear as to why we think it's a benefit for the county to allow for these bonds. The acceleration of development would allow us to generate within the normal property tax regime and sales tax regime of the county at the Farms of New Kent, a significant value contribution. This is what we measure both on property tax and sales tax on an accelerated time frame. And the present value here, I think we used 4%, as the county's cost of capital. We measure it at $180 million. The economic choice that we think the county is making, to not allow for the accelerated development is that the pay-as-you-go, we're going to still develop. We're here. We're your partners. We're not walking away. We're not taking our toys and going home. But to the extent we cannot accelerate the development, it's just simple math. The impact of that is a reduction of about 1.5 times, on that $180 million of present value to the county. The other part is that the vast majority of those 1,800 homes that are under the PUD in our control are those that are adding value. I'm clearly sensitive to the fact that homes bring services, service demands onto the county. But active adult is that type of product that brings value without as much of the service burden that otherwise would be attributable to a single-family home with children. No impact on the schools, less traffic in terms of those trips in and out for those residents, and it's a money adder in terms of perhaps kind of a net win or net zero as it relates to a single family that might get built with the needs of those families that are moving in. Accelerating development also gives us the ability to lean in to a transaction that we otherwise might not be doing in the normal course of business. We are negotiating. It's a confidential grocer, but I know we've had that conversation with the board, and the ability to accelerate development is going to be a key determinant as to whether or not that grocer actually comes in and closes on a transaction. An option is one thing. Closing on the grocery is really what I think all of us would want to see, and that accelerated development I think is going to be a critical component in terms of that grocer's underwriting. I've already talked about the willingness to have a contribution to Pine Fork Park as part of the benefit as well. The next page, which we did not provide in previous materials, but I just wanted to put in context, what we understand the primary concern to be. It's that the ability to make sure that the appropriate disclosures are made to those homeowners that are moving in and buying the house initially, but also for each of those homeowners to make sure that they have the appropriate disclosure when they're buying the house in the secondary market. And that is a normal course of business. In fact, this is what we believe to be a list of all the community development authorities in the state of Virginia. And in the far right-hand column, you'll see which ones of those require a prepayment prior to the transfer to the homeowner, and those that do not. And the only outlier inside of that list is, in fact, this community development authority. So this is the only CDA in the state that requires that. And we know that because the administrator here for this CDA, MuniCap, administers every single CDA in the state, and they have the process down pat in terms of making sure those disclosures are made, and also being there to address any concerns that might come up. We're fully aware of the disclosure issues that have occurred at I think it's Bottoms Ridge. And this is just a very different, type of assessment. This is a fixed lien. It doesn't have variability. Once it's on, it's on the property without any confusion as to what that obligation is going to be. And the reality is that, this lien can be prepaid at any time. So, that fixed principal amount would also be something that if it became a problem for the builders, it's something that could be prepaid as part of the normal course.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
on
sir.
This list that you have here, how many of these were special assessments that were collected, changed about halfway through the development, or were these special assessments assessed as soon as the development was started?
I would imagine that, I don't know the answer specifically, but just what I think would be the normal course of business is that, this would have been established at the commencement of, the development. So that's slightly different than what we have here, but in the context of the overall 2006 bonds that were originally issued, yes. But what we're talking about is creating a sub-district just on the portion of the property that is at the same stage that all these other CDAs were, created. So it would only apply to those lands that are under development that are under our control, those trustee lands. So, Mr. Evelyn, I acknowledge there is a difference, but when you put it in the context, again, of the lands that we're talking about, it would be very different if we were coming in here and saying, hey, we want to levy special assessments on those property owners that have already lived and have moved into the farms in New Kent, and that is not, what we're asking here in terms of our request.
If I can, I'm looking at this list too, and some of these I'm familiar with, and they're commercial and mixed-use developments. Are any of these residential?
Yes, they are. H2O, Celebrate Virginia, Chippenham, Mosaic has residential. I was the banker on Mosaic. Marquee has some residential. Most of these have some residential, as it relates to it as well. I can, Rodney, I can get you the breakdown, between those that are just commercial and those that have residential, but I don't know every detail of every one of these CDAs, but MediaCap does, and I can absolutely get that to you. So again, I'm not trying to dismiss, the concern. I can't make a promise to you that, to the extent this was approved by the board, that a homeowner won't make a phone call 5 years forward or 10 years forward. But what I can tell you is that, there's a process in place, that runs for the full term of, that indebtedness, 30 years. And we have an administrator that administers all of the CDAs, in the state and has a process to handle those. But the disclosures, that have been developed, to, facilitate, these CDAs and the other, transactions is a well-worn path. The last page here, that at least on the, kind of the, the prepared remarks that we wanted to make is that, we have been a good partner, I believe, with the county. We think the county's been a great partner for us as well. So we are not here, saying that we're going to, take our toys and go home. But our demonstration of being a good partner, not only is in the acquisition of what was otherwise a problem. We acquired $84 million of bonds. That without our involvement, I think today, that property would still be sitting fallow. And the reason I have confidence in saying that is the previous structure had effectively an impediment for new money to come in. We're in the business of deploying capital. We have not only acquired those $84 million of bonds, we have put the money in out of our pocket to start the development. In excess of $12 million has gone into the property from us. And then the big part of this that was prior to our involvement, it was just a mess. To be honest with you, those delinquent assessments that were there on the property made it undevelopable. It totaled $42 million. And we came in, and the only way that we found out through the attorneys to clear that, even though we owned all the bonds, was to write a check. So we wrote a $42 million check, to clear those special assessments. And since that time, have continued to make payments, for the assessments on a going forward basis. And we worked out a process with the prior treasurer, and we've had phone calls with the new treasurer as it relates to that, and we'll continue to do that. But those things would not have been possible, prior to our involvement. We don't think, so that that property would have just sat there, as just fields, before that involvement. And the other thing is that it's part of the PUD, which is that second section of the things that we've done. I don't need to go through, but we fulfilled our obligations under the PUD. We again thank the board, for the amendments to the PUD that they approved back in 2018. But I think at this stage, everything that was required to have been paid or done under that PUD has. We still have other obligations on amenities, et cetera, that will be coming, and we're going to fulfill those as well. But again, I think it's been a good partnership between the county and Preston Hollow Capital. So as it relates to this, what we would ask of the board, we're not asking for it today, is to have a formal vote as it relates to this at the next meeting or whatever it is, so we can have a kind of a determination from the board as to whether this is something possible or not. But we just wanted to make sure that you understood from us why this is so important. I think not just to us but to the county as well, because the ability to accelerate development here is going to help drive a lot of value to address many of the things that we've heard discussed even just today, but I'm sure part of the regular dialogue for just running a county as you folks do. The other pages I think would be perhaps interesting for you to look at in terms of what has changed. Page 8 shows you those homes that are actually getting developed in Land Bay 4. But perhaps the more striking is on page 9 and 10. Told you we've already put $12 million into the site, and we're starting to see some fairly dramatic changes. Land Bay 5 on page 9. This is a very small piece. It's the lifestyle section. It's the first of 3 product types that Ryan Homes is going to be building in Land Bay 5. That active adult portion. And we are chugging away with David Guy's help, and our contractor out there, Shoesmith, is doing a fantastic job. And the new bonds again would allow us to continue this work, accelerate it, and take advantage of a point in time that we sit here today. The thing that's frankly surprised me more than anything with COVID is that. Well, let me put it in this context. I remember first having a conversation with Ryan Homes and D.R. Horton, that are our home builders, in the farms in New Kent in April of this year. And they were both very concerned as to what COVID's going to mean for their business. But the surprising part, to us is, we are at this point in time that we can capture, this incredible demand. County's made a decision as it relates to the PUD back in March. The PUD is there, the development is authorized to go, and I would ask that the county help us accelerate that and make that a reality, and take advantage of this point in time that we're living in today, where COVID is actually a net positive for the farms in New Kent, which was again, one of my biggest surprises as to what was happening. Other pages on, the update were, just things that we're planning in Land Bay 5. You'll get a sense of, the amenities that we hope to continue to be able to provide, for the community. Page 13, shows you the pool that we have fully architects, renderings, right? And we're, going to be coming to the, county for approval as well for that. But this is not just a hole in the ground. Again, to give you some sense of, the quality that, we are trying to instill in the community here. Junior size Olympic swimming pool with swimming lanes, but at the same time, lazy rivers to, have fun with the grandkids and or have, kind of, exercise where you're going against the current, places to, sit and enjoy the community, is, again, the level of commitment that we have here and we want to continue to be able to make. That was my presentation. Again, what I would like to do is, work with Mr. Hathaway and, bring an action to the board, and asking for, a formal vote as it relates to the new money. And again, we're big boys. We're here. We're going to be your partners. We're partners all over the country. But, we think in the right level of partnership together, support inside of this request is going to be of benefit to us, but, frankly, more of a benefit to you to the extent we can accelerate development. So, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's what I wanted to get off my chest, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Mr. Steers?
Yes, sir. A couple questions. First of all, I want to tell you we appreciate you being here, and we hope your development continues to grow. One thing I need for you to stress is this new assessment on any home sold, the new homeowners would be well aware of the assessment, and it would be in writing before they purchase the home.
Absolutely.
Am I correct?
Absolutely.
So if they are aware of the assessment and they're willing to pay the assessment, there's no reason for them to call the county and complain about their assessment. Am I right?
Absolutely, sir. Yes.
Okay.
And that well-worn path, that I was speaking about, I can have the experts come in. I don't want to, overload the board with information, but, there are disclosure statements that are part of the initial marketing at the builders. There are disclosure statements at the closing table. There are liens recorded on the property that will be picked up by the title companies, on the next sale, from the homeowner to the next homeowner. So all of this is, being done with absolute full transparency to the buyers, both at the primary and the secondary.
And my second question is, this grocer that you're speaking of was one of two grocers that I reached out to a couple years ago and asked them to come and look at New Kent County. And do you think if you don't get your wishes here with the bonds and stuff, that this grocer will change their mind about possibly locating to New Kent County?
Perhaps. And the reason I say that, grocers are all formulaic. And, they draw a circle around their grocery store, they look at the competition, and then they count, when those rooftops are going to come. As it relates to, their due diligence, to, go through and understand when those rooftops will come, I don't think it's going to, a grocer will be there one day. I'm not sure, to the extent we can't convince them, that we are going to continue with the development of the pace that we have, that we can get them to their rooftop count. Who knows? I don't have I'm not saying that they're going to walk away. Here, I don't have that. I do worry, though, that if we can't get to their rooftop count, that they're going to delay their decision.
You're right about that, because that was what they stressed to me, the roof count. And of course, I tried to explain to them we may not have the numbers in population, but we have about 60 to 80,000 people a day that pass right by there on the interstate, and they do not take that in consideration. They also do not take in consideration if you have a university or college in your town, which I found that surprising. But
no, the traffic counts along the interstate there, you should otherwise justify, but again, they're such a formulaic buyer, and the only way to formulaically get them to our site today is to convince them that that development is coming quickly.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The acceleration gives us a little bit more financial flexibility to offer concessionary terms. The rooftop condos is not where they want it yet. So the way that Romero has been able to kind of attract them so far is to, kind of give them a lower rate on the land and more parking, more, just more amenities to kind of suck them in early. So that it helps that way.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, I guess should we begin with Mr. Hathaway and putting a proposal together for us to look at?
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time, and we're going to go to our site again. So,
All right,
thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break.
I'll take your paycheck if that makes you feel better.
Good day, sir. What's wrong with that? It's already on, I saw it before. No, sir. Yes, sir, we are. Well below. See ya. There you go. Yeah, and you can get driving privilege and no tax test. Yep. Understand Just go through directive IP, don't mean you get free screen things. Get up, keep moving. Nothing to see here. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely, ma'am. Would you like me to go check it for you? Good, because I'm not going. I mean, yeah, something like that. There you go. Good.
How you feeling?
Every day.
No, sir. And it's not that I don't, I told people, it's not that I don't love what I'm doing, enjoy it, it's all financial. Because if I stayed, this is the only thing that's 4 years enough to win, I turned 70 in midterm, and I would lose my multiplier for retirement. Right now, 39. Enjoy what I'm doing. The environment's not the same. The whole world changes, not living. Technology becomes obsolete as soon as it hits shelves in the store. You gotta watch those long arrows. Man, you're almost cutting into cowboy. No, it starts at about 11:30. Yeah, till about 12, because he beats people getting to the bus.
Back to order. Next item is other business. I think we're going to get an update from Fire Chief and Mr. Hathaway on the vaccinations. Chief?
breaking stuff here. Stand by.
Another meeting? Oh my God. I'm gonna need a rolling cart to get all these papers.
You know I like to use papers. You know I like to use paper.
I see you grinning every time.
Somebody come by with a 20-page. 10 more trees.
Hey.
I don't know where.
Oh, there.
He's mad that they didn't print this here at the county. Oh, here we go with that. Another case with the.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Hathaway. Coming to you today with kind of a presentation on some of the vaccination planning that we've been doing here in the county over the past few weeks, kind of a summary of where we've been and kind of where we've gone. As you are aware, there's a lot of developments at the state level in order to get out the doses, and we'll talk a little more about that. But just as a historical note, today is the anniversary, 1-year anniversary of when we in Fire Rescue were notified about a little thing called, hold on, let me get the right thing here. It was originally called novel coronavirus, NCOV, and that's when we put a general order out to our folks about, hey, there's something bad coming. It's been 1 year ago. So here we are today in the vaccination mode. So let's first talk about kind of some of the clinics that we've already had for vaccinations. We held one on January 13th. That was for our 1A first responders. We held that here in the Apex building. That was to both New Kent County and Charles City County first responders, and we did about a total vaccinations of, actually it was right at 100. We averaged about 2.08 shots in arms every 5 minutes on that. A little smaller clinic, but we were able to achieve an objective there of getting our first responders taken care of. Most recently, this past Saturday, we had a very large clinic here held at the high school on January 23rd. That was a 6-hour clinic. We kind of opened that to the 1A, 1B, 65 and older. Predominantly, this was set up as school personnel as the schools and as the governor moved towards getting the kids back in schools. This was a priority. We originally arranged this with Dr. Nichols and his staff, along with the health district, and the health district kept on kind of adding doses here to say, hey, we're already here, let's keep on adding to this. So that's where the outreach through social services came about through some of our other folks. That day we did a total of 876 vaccinations, and we averaged about 14.6 shots in arms every 5 minutes there. Upcoming right now on February 10th at the Apex is going to be round 2 for the first responders that we did for both New Kent and Charles City County. Estimated total there is 100. I did have a conversation with the health district, and they are going to only be bringing the amount of doses that were distributed in round 1. So they're only going to be bringing that 100 doses that they distributed in round 1. On February 20th, we're going to go back to the high school for dose number 2 for the same thing we just did this past Saturday. And again, they're only going to be bringing 876 doses. Hopefully they will have them to bring with them. So that is the 2 upcoming that we have right now. Last week, in discussion with Mr. Hathaway, we formed a county vaccination work group with some folks who, so we can kind of discuss our plans here in the county and what that looks like. We held our first meeting this past Monday on the 25th, and In that meeting, we quickly developed some call center plan, and we'll get into that here in a little bit for New Kent County residents. We developed some criteria for a call center registration portal. We developed criteria for a dashboard for New Kent vaccination clinics. We aligned some training for call takers. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, as well as we've set up a meeting with our leadership to discuss upcoming plans for vaccination sites with the health district here, and that's coming this Thursday on the 28th. So we talked a little bit there about a call center. Right now, we're looking to plan and open a call center for New Kent County residents here and have that Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The purpose of this call center is to educate our public, educate your constituents on the what, the where, and the how. Because right now, I truly believe that that is a big gap in the state's process of getting that information. And the reason I say that is I know all of you are getting cell phone calls. We're getting cell phone calls about, hey, where do we register? How do we register? I'm in this group. Why haven't I been contacted? And I think we owe it to our citizens to open up this call center to give them the information that they are looking for. Our phones have the capability to roll over to 5 individuals. We're going to be setting this call center up upstairs in this floor until we start the renovations on the HVAC system. And what's good about it, it's portable. We can pick it up and move it to wherever we want to go. We have identified individuals to run the call center on a daily basis, picking folks and people who volunteer who are already employees throughout the county. Our goals, obviously, is to provide high-quality customer service to our New Kent County citizens. We want to deliver hospitality in an empathetic manner. We want to register citizens for clinics once we identify those clinics and locate them throughout the county. We want to notify citizens of the location, the times, the general information, and as well as once we get that confirmation of how many doses that we are really going to get, that's when we reach back out to them and with their scheduled time in that clinic. We also want to help with frequently asked questions, and that could be as easily as I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to call someone who knows that and get back with them. And the key here is follow up and follow back up with those constituents. And then we're going to research and follow up any other questions that come in and update that FAQ as we move forward into the center. We're developing a registration portal. This is going to have the capacity to register at least 5 individuals at once. That portal is going to be in use by the call center personnel. We know that for a majority of our population or a large portion of our population, they don't have computers or they don't want to get into the computer business of registering online. So we're going to help them register online. We're just going to ask them a lot of questions. We're going to be able to register them through this portal. And this portal is going to able to assign multiple clinics. We're able to assign algorithms for total doses versus hours. Those algorithms are going to then let us generate time blocks and then automatically put those folks who have registered on a first come, first served basis into those time blocks. Once those time blocks are generated, that's when we'll call back our customers and let them know here's your time block for the clinic that we have scheduled. System's also going to generate a real-time dashboard showing scheduled clinics and doses available. So if we have a clinic with 250 doses available, it's going to show based on who's on the phone and how many we have left. So that's going to be a real-time dashboard showing how many spots we have left in there and if it's full or not. And also, it's going to allow us easy check-in during the event. One of the things that we want to improve on from our last event was that front-end registration. As you can imagine, that was a lot of work on the front end of it. And we had some challenges at the beginning of it, but I think this system here is going to allow us to not only make this better, but to track once they sign in the how many pretty easily, so that we can make plans if some folks don't go on. We've made some preliminary outreach to some locations throughout the county. Obviously, the high school is always available to that. Dr. Nichols pledged that facility to us for as long as we needed on the weekends. That was very gracious of them, as well as their cleaning staff, which was phenomenal for the last one. The Providence Forge Rec Center has graciously allowed us to use that if necessary, as well as the Cumberland Community Center and St. Elizabeth and Seton. The high school's on weekends, and these other ones are on weekdays. So that's kind of in our plans right now, of kind of spreading out that location as we start identifying these clinics. Our goals with picking those were large parking lots and facilities, spaces inside to expand if necessary. So there's been a lot of talk, and if you heard anything on the news, you'll see that obviously the doses are not easy to find in the Commonwealth of Virginia right now. Some of the larger municipalities are making some noise, and that noise have generated, as of early this week, late last week, kind of some new guidance from VDH, and that guidance is now going to be that we get a percentage of the total population of Virginia, of the Commonwealth. So whatever our population is, divide that into the $8.5 million, or 8.5 million residents in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That is our kind of allotment. And when you do that math, it's 0.27% of the total doses that Virginia gets. Right now, today, they are getting on average 105,000 doses a week. So if you do that math comes out to that we would receive 283.5 doses weekly. That's kind of one model that's going on. The next model is our health districts model that we just received early this week as well. I would imagine that it follows the same guidance. I think there's just one error that was made, but they're saying that we get 14% of the health districts. The health district's going to get 1,800 weekly, and that comes out to 252 weekly. And if you do the quick math on that, that is actually to our 2010 census of 18,000. That is not our current population. If you do 23,000, which is our current population, is that correct, Kelly? That comes back up to that 283.5 weekly. So that's kind of the disconnect there that we're seeing between that 252 and that 282 number. Okay, so it's a little troublesome, and social media tells another story if you want to believe what's on there as well of what's happening. So the facts are right now is the guidance that's coming down to us is that 105,000 doses a week that are coming into the Commonwealth, 1,800 are only coming into our health district, and looks like going forward we're only going to get anywhere between 252 and 283 doses a week. That is kind of the guidance that we see right now. So I've run a few scenarios here coming up. Now, I caution before I show this slide, there are a lot of assumptions that I took in these next 3 slides, a lot of assumptions. So those at home who are watching this, there's no need to hit any panic button. These are scenarios based on these assumptions. But I think it's assumptions that we need to put in the back of our mind to set some expectations moving forward. So the first scenario, we have a few assumptions here. We have approximately 4,800 age 65 and older individuals who are our priority right now. Also, the assumption is that weekly vaccination distribution of 252 or 283. A weekly clinic, that's an assumption that we're going to run a weekly clinic here in New Kent County. That is if we have the manpower and the support from our health district. We're also assuming that people are not going elsewhere to get their vaccinations. I know that already people are going elsewhere to get those. However, we're assuming that here in this scenario. Also, we're assuming that children are not prioritized. Right now, they're not prioritized. Right now, it's not recommended anyone under the age of 18 do that. That could probably change. However, in this scenario, that is not, that is an assumption that we're doing. So just to vaccinate the 4,800 65 and older, based on this model, it's going to take us 38 weeks in New Kent, sometime around mid-October 2021. That is with their first and second doses. Okay, that's a pretty hard pill to swallow right there. 38 weeks mid-October based on that run. Next scenario is our full rollout scenarios when they open it up to vaccinations to anyone out there. So based on that, obviously our population is 2,300. You subtract some of that 4,800 and the children population, you're looking at anywhere around 14,000 left to vaccinate in this county, give or take. These are some assumptions. Again, that's age 18 to 65. Assuming everyone else, again, everyone gets vaccinated and gets vaccinated in New Kent County, that's an assumption. Assuming supply chain does not improve, that's one assumption we're doing here. Assuming weekly vaccination clinics, that we have that one to put out those 252. Assuming no additional vaccine manufacturers are coming out. There are rumors that Johnson & Johnson's coming out right now with one dose, but again, we don't know where, what time, and when. And also assuming that we're going to start mid-June for this, when they start opening this up. And again, children are not prioritized. This scary number is 112 weeks for both doses, and that completes us on this scenario around summer of 2023. Again, at those at home who are watching, don't hit the panic button. Again, there's a lot of assumptions here, and we just heard last night that the federal government's going to be probably pushing down multiple millions of doses here in the summertime. However, based on the information we have and what we're hearing right now, this is kind of the long-term plan effect that we have based on those doses allotment for New Kent County. So this is kind of what we could anticipate if we're held to that standard or that guidance moving forward. It's a pretty scary thought. So a few things came out in the last couple days on FEMA. Actually, you have this in that handout. This is that, yes, the portrait size there. Under the Biden administration's making some things here to push down, and that is FEMA's taking action to support this plan. They are going to support expanded vaccinations, deploying some federal personnel to support these vaccinations. So they're ramping up pretty good at FEMA right now to kind of help the states and where the states need them across the country. Again, providing staff, U.S. Army, Corps, a whole bunch of stuff that they're doing. I'm not going to read these word for word. You have it there in front of you. But also, one of the good things coming out of this here is obviously as we do this and if we undertake these, obviously it's going to cost us money here in the county. One of the things that they're opening are their federal funding and the way they do public assistance. As you know, when we have a hurricane or something, we put in for public assistance. That usually takes 3 to 4 years to recoup our money. And then there's a match to that. In this process here, it looks like that there's going to be no match and it's going to be immediate. Even if we have a project on the front end, like vaccination clinics that we know of, we can write this up, give them kind of a budget of what we're looking at, and they'll put that before the review committee, and that gets either denied or approved pretty quickly now. Arlington County just did this. They got approved for, I think it was $2.5 million to run their own clinics in Arlington County. That was a pretty easy process from what I understand. So this is another thing that they're doing here to open up to make that funding available for any public assistance that we do need. So the good news is, the CARES money has been spent. That this is another possibility that if we do find ourselves of getting into the vaccination clinic work, which we already are, I think there's some help here along the way for the financing or for funding to help us with that. And some of those things here that funding can use for is exactly what we've been doing so far, is leasing facilities or equipment to administer and store the vaccine, providing personal protective equipment and disinfectant services, paying staff overtime for vaccine administration or logistics, contracting additional staff if needed, training personnel on vaccination distribution administration, supplies for administration sites, technology to register and track vaccine, and providing public communication on vaccine efforts. So everything that kind of our work group kind of discussed on Monday, this just came out here in the last couple of days, is kind of supportive of this funding to move forward here in the county with these vaccination clinics. So we've got some work to do. I know it's frustrating because we're all getting the phone calls, but right now it looks like it's a hurry up and wait situation until the vaccinations are plentiful moving forward. So are there any questions of me for where this is?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Lockwood?
Thank you, Rick. Good information, and I'm always impressed with how well you put things together on short notice and accomplish a goal that the state hasn't been able to manage at all. So who put together the call center, or how are we, I mean, you're obviously using a platform for some kind of software for the logging the calls and creating your lists and all that stuff. Where did that come from?
That pretty much came out of our work group in our office. The rollover phones, we already have that in the EOC from what we do in any natural disaster. Those are available to pick up and plug and play everywhere. As far as the database, that is something we created in-house. We farmed it out, but we created kind of the criteria in-house and pushed it out. It was pretty much the same vendor that did the sign-in out there. Those are our sign-in. So it was a quick, here's our criteria from our meeting. We put it there, and it is going to be up and ready to go, hopefully by Monday coming up here. So our goal is to get some type of call center open sometime Monday, but that's not 100%. It could go to Tuesday. We will make those notifications via our social media, and our PIO will get that out to the community as soon as that is open going forward.
There's a lot of information, we'll call it, going around that, Virginia is receiving over 1 million vaccines and only administered 400,000 or 500,000 of them. Do you see it as a backlog at the state level, that things just aren't getting pushed out? I mean, where is the other 500,000 vaccines, and why aren't they? The governor's original proposal when he announced all this was get shots in arms. Don't hoard, don't hold. If we got it, give it. And it seems on the surface that those shots aren't getting in arms. So where's the bottleneck that's occurring, if there even is one? And 2023 summer, I mean, the governor in his original announcement at the beginning of January was talking about us being done with this process by the end of this summer. Obviously, we're not getting the numbers that they thought they were going to get, but that's very concerning for there to be a 2-year discrepancy in projections. And I'm just wondering, are you hearing anything otherwise? I mean, is the state the problem? Is the federal government the problem? Or is it just totally a lack of vaccine?
Mr. Lockwood, I don't know the answer to your question. I wish I did so I can go fix it. I really would, but
I believe that you could, Rick.
Thank you. At the end of the day, I know the guidance that we're getting pushed down is that 105,000, and that's coming right out of the VDH push down through our state contacts in our health district. My assumption is that number is going to grow. It has to if they do want to hit any goals. But I think right now, out of the box, I don't know what the reason is of why there is a lag. I don't know. But if I do find that answer out, I'll certainly pass that along to you.
Well, and I just want to add, too, that, sort of like the trash situation, we hear a lot of complaints, but I also want you to know that I received just as many compliments about the organization that you guys had at last week's event. And just about everybody thinks that you deserve the credit, and I'm sure a lot of your staff and a lot of knowing that our sheriff was involved keeping things moving along for you. So thank you to everybody that was involved.
Mr. Lockwood, thank you. It's not me. I've got a team, and there was a lot of team players too. There were schools involved, the sheriff's office, social services, county administrator, a lot of players, and we made it happen. And we got a lot of good folks on the team, and we just made it happen. So, thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, the Promise Forge Rec Center would be available on weekends also, not just on weekdays.
Thank you.
And just check to make sure it's not rented. And then to kind of expand on what Mr. Lockwood said, I can't believe the people that called. It was the kind of phone calls and text messages you love to get. And I said, well, hell, I think Rick probably designed the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. You know, it was great. You did a super job. And people saying they pulled up in the parking lot knowing they were going to have a 2-hour wait to get in, and they were in, got their shots out in less than an hour. So that kudos to you. And I know it's your team, and to Joe McLaughlin for the traffic control and stuff like that. We appreciate that. But I think, you know, also is if it was a federal problem for these vaccines, then everybody would be in the same boat we're in. It looks to me like we're in a boat by ourselves. I mean, out of 50 states, we're ranked 50 in getting the vaccines out. They don't have a problem in West Virginia. 84% of their residents have already had the shot. So that tells me it's not a federal problem. It tells me it's a state problem. And, you know, I joined in with the Board of Supervisors, Chesterfield County, sending the governor a letter telling him how dismayed they were with his performance in getting the vaccines out. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Chief of that, I can't say when can we get it out to the community because we just did a presentation. But to our constituents, would you prefer us waiting closer to Monday to have conversations with our constituents?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I said I was going to ask you when could we get this message out to our constituents. However, it has been presented today, so it is out. But to have more in-depth conversations, would you prefer that we wait until Monday when you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few things that we need to work out on the team to get that up and running live. We certainly have some training and testing to go on, and we're reliant on that training right now with the health district. They're going to train our folks on some FAQs and kind of where to get some answers to questions that we don't know. So that's where we are. We have a goal of Monday, sometime Monday, and as soon as we pull that trigger, we will certainly let you all know to get that information out.
And this portal will link to VDH?
No, ma'am. This is our own portal.
Okay.
So
if they register with VDH, they still need to register through this portal?
That's right.
Okay.
That is right.
And thank you all for Saturday.
Yeah, and probably we won't register folks until we know that we have a clinic. We can answer questions up to that point, but we will not, once we do that, it's not like we're holding lists. It's when we have a clinic, we'll open up our phone lines, they will call in, and we will take them from there. Because they do have that opportunity to go elsewhere through the CDC site.
That's a good point, though, Ms. P. Regarding the health department, is there any coordination with their previous commitments that they've made? And I know that they did reach out to Proclaiming Grace and wanted to schedule a vaccination event with one of their pantry days. And I just wanted, is that going to be something that they're feeding you information and we're working together, or are we just saying we're going to take this and take charge?
I sure hope so. I think with our meeting on Thursday with the health district, we'll iron a few of those things out of what's coming in. I certainly would like our team to be aware of anything that the health district's doing in this county. And I think we're going to send that message softly to them or harshly, which one
I would
that
say
we need to do.
Firmly.
Yes,
just make
firmly.
sure they understand that, because we only get the allotment And if they use it for their program, we don't get it, we're not getting 252 more. So it's definitely going to have to be something that is coordinated in one place. And I personally would prefer that be with your team.
Absolutely.
The other side note is that in speaking to the trustees of the Cumberland Community Center, they're available weekends and weekdays. They're waiting on your dates.
Okay, excellent.
And they're doing it at, as a community service.
Okay. And also, just one note, these clinics, we're going to schedule not just 8 to 4:30 clinics. We will have them second shifts to accommodate workers' hours. I'm not so sure about third shifts, but that's some conversation that we're had. But we do want to be flexible for everyone's schedule.
Mr. Tiller?
I know somebody mentioned a little while ago about a certain part of the population that may not have a computer or want to be in the computer business. The population in the county, I know we've gotten notifications from the Sheriff's Department and from schools before about different events. Could that be something that a blanket call could go out to the
Yes.
county to notify, and leave a phone number for them to call to register?
Yes, and we also plan on using our Everbridge mass notification tool that we have for emergencies. Whoever's registered with that will get that. We can also do a polygon geographical area and send that out to those areas. But that information is only as good as what people have entered into it. So if it's good information in, it's good information out. If it's garbage in, it's garbage out at that point. But we do plan on using all of those platforms to get the word out.
Chief, you also mentioned that possibly that you might have a mobile crew to go to the shut-ins and stuff like that. Is that still in process?
Yeah, thank you. That's one of the recommendations we want to make to the health district is that when we do have these clinics, one of the questions that we have in the portal is, do you have any special accommodations or do we need to accommodate for any reason? If the answer is, listen, I can't drive, I can't get out of my house, I'm confined to my house, we will then set up a mobile lab, if you say, for lack of better words, a mobile distribution where we throw some of the health folks in the back of an ambulance. We drive them there. We give them their shot. We wait the 15 minutes and we move on to the next one. And we would schedule that methodically around the county based on that. So that's going to be that question. And when we ask them, hey, what special accommodations that you may have, and there'll be more questions that's going to generate or drive that mobile service. So yes, we would like to do that. It's just if the health district would be able to provide us with the staff in the back of that ambulance to do so.
Probably get Amazon Prime to do that.
We can do that too, yes. Not to you.
Anybody else have anything for the chief? Chief, Sheriff, Mr. Hathaway, and all y'all staff, we do appreciate the forward thinking and trying to get this thing done. You know, I just sit in the meeting, kind of listen to the experts do all the figuring, and with Krista's help, I think this thing can be a very successful and important way to get vaccines out to our citizens. I just think being proactive is the way to go, and not sitting back and waiting for the clinic to come to us. So, and keep putting pressure on everybody that we can. I think whatever from the board standpoint, if we need to write letters, I think we'll do whatever you all think we need to do.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the support.
Do we have any other business?
Nothing else under other business. We do have a couple of items for closed session.
Ms. Page? Oh.
I just had one thing. Sheriff sent me this earlier, just as kind of a public service announcement. It looks like the bridge in Eltham going to West Point is going to be down to one lane in each direction for the next 2 days. So just people kind of plan accordingly. There's going to be restricted use of the bridge while they put out maintenance barriers on Route 33 through Eltham and the bridge going into West Point. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Page?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711A, 5 of the Code of Virginia for discussion involving Project Solis, potential business where no previous announcement has been made of this business's interest in locating its facility in the county. And, Mr. Chairman, I further move to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711A.29 of the Code of Virginia for discussion of a public contract involving the expenditure of school funds and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in open session will adversely affect the bargaining position and negotiating strategy of the board involving the purchase of fire apparatus.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye.